Okay, so that was part one of this alleged victim's testimony, and we have a lot more to talk about. I want to bring on a guest right now to talk more about this, a very special guest. Criminal defense attorney Saman Nasseri is joining us. Saman, welcome back here to Law&Crime.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Okay, so my question to you is what the sense that I'm getting when I listen back to her testimony and when I've listened to Len Kachinsky testify on Friday is that they seem to be having a normal, cordial, working relationship on both ends. They seem to be communicating on multiple ways, platforms, including Facebook. That's how they originally started communicating. And then it was one message that he wrote on Facebook about this second honeymoon that seemed to throw everything off course. Is that what you see?
That's what I see, and the problem with a lot of these stalking cases or restraining order cases, it's subjective, right? It's a matter of two people are going to have different views of how they view the relationship. And is it possible that Kachinsky had a view that they were maybe more than just acquaintances, or he wanted to be more than just acquaintances? It's very possible. Did he have a view that did it escalate? I mean, from the testimony, from what we've heard so far, obviously, it's not. He escalates it slowly, and I don't know if it could have gotten to a point where it would have been dangerous. But she obviously felt uncomfortable, and that's what matters in these cases. Is again, it's subjective. Now the jury's going to look at it and would objectively would a reasonable person in a similar situation feel the same way?
So let's break that down. It matters only what she was feeling, but the jury has to understand whether or not that was reasonable. So that's the way to understand it, right? And the idea is she had told him after that, I want to have a working relationship. That's it. No personal communication. Is that the right standard?
It's that, to say I want to have a professional relationship, that right there, that's nipping it in the bud as early as possible, right? You see the same thing happens in sexual harassment cases in the workplace. As soon as it's brought to someone's attention, and as soon as it's snipped, as soon as it's brought out, and then you continue the behavior, now you're on the hook, right? If he would have stopped it right there or calmed it down, we wouldn't be here. But he kept going with it, and that's what makes it a problem.
Interesting. Okay, we have more to talk about in this trial. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a lot more to discuss. Stay tuned. That's the defendant testifying in his own stalking trial. Saman, one of the first things that we learned about was the health issues associated with this defendant. I'm curious, how do you think that plays into this case for the jury to hear that?
I think it plays into a little bit of sympathy as to what his state of mind was. He might have been sick, he might have been scared, he might have been lonely. Don't forget, he's a defense attorney, right? He's a well-knowledge, well-skilled, seasoned defense attorney. And he knows what the juries want to hear. He knows how to formulate his answers. This is a guy that's been prepping witnesses for decades. So, that's something that the jury's going to take into consideration, too. So everything he does is taxable. Okay,
well, let's see how he did. We're going to continue on a little bit more with this testimony in case you missed it. Saman, it's amazing to hear this communication earlier on in their relationship, their working relationship, because they seem to be very close. And now, 2018, where we sit today, she is on trial. He is on trial where she is testifying against him, saying that he stalked her. So how do we reconcile this difference?
It's what was the trigger point, right? So something then happens. Either he does something to make her uncomfortable, or she feels like she might have led him on too strong, and now he feels like there's more to the relationship than just someone that wants to be there for him. Don't forget, he was sick, so she wants to be there for him. Maybe she's just trying to be a good person. And he might have read into that a little bit too much. He was sick, he was lonely, it's what his state of mind was. And that's something that the jury could potentially feel bad for, is, oh no, this poor guy just read into this completely the wrong way, and she took it too far and gave him that feeling that it could have gone that way.
I got to ask you, I've seen cases, okay? I've seen restraining order cases. I've seen stalking cases. There seems to be usually, or a lot of times, a sexual element. I'm not quite sure I see that here. So what was the goal? If we take everything that Mandy Bartelt explained on the stand and she testified to, we take it all as true, and we believe that he did engage in this erratic and maybe even threatening behavior after she told him to stop. What was the goal?
That's what confuses me, is what is her end game here, right?
Well, no, what's his end game? What was his end game, if we take it? What was he trying to do?
I mean, for him, it's maybe escalating the relationship. In his head, maybe he just wanted someone to be there with him. It may not have been a sexual way. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And you're right. I don't see the way that they both talk about it. I don't see the sexual element that's there in usual stalking cases and restraining order cases. Yeah. But it's someone that might have just wanted companionship. And that might have been his end game, is just having a companion, as someone that he can confide in, as someone he could be with, as someone who could be there for him.
Listen, we're trying to make sense out of facts that don't quite make that much sense, especially when we talk about those cat noises. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have a further discussion on this trial. Okay, Saman, we're seeing a little bit of Len Kachinsky on the stand. How do you think he's doing so far?
Poised, relaxed. Again, he's been prepping people for a year, so he knows. He's been on the flip side of the stand, right? He's been the one asking the questions. He's been the one gauging the answers. Everything he's saying is very precise. I mean, he's if he wasn't an attorney and he was a regular client or a regular witness, this is a defense attorney's dream, to have someone that knows how to answer the questions, has the right mannerisms, knows when to look at the jury. He knows when to give a yes or no answer when it's just yes and no. Knows not when to say too much, when not to say too much. I mean, he's skilled. He knows what he's doing.
All right. Well, let's see if he continues to know what he's doing when his testimony continues. All right, I'm back here with Saman Nasseri. So, Saman, we're listening to this, and we're trying to see how this whole seemingly great friendship deteriorated. And we look at the statute, the stalking statute, and it says that the Kachinsky would have had to engage in a course of conduct directed at her that would cause a reasonable person to suffer severe emotional distress or to fear bodily injury to her or to one of her, somebody of her family. The question is, though, is that what went on here?
So far, no. I mean, from what you hear in the testimony and what you hear her say, that's not what it sounded like. It might sound like a personal hostile relationship, maybe something that might warrant a restraining order, mildly, maybe a restraining order. But it doesn't sound like it escalated to anything criminal yet.
Well, here's the question. So serious emotional distress. Right, we talked about it earlier. If that's what she felt, isn't that all that matters? And what is reasonable then? What is a reasonable person suffering emotional distress?
And that's the key word, right? Reasonable. If the 12 people sitting in that box are like, well, yeah, she suffered emotional distress, but the question is, why was she so distressed over this? What happened that we didn't hear about that made her so incredibly distressed and so fearful about things that took it to this level that prosecutors thought there was a criminal case here.
Right.
So that's really what it comes down to. That's the reason. Reasonable is the key word, because, like I said, it's subjective. Anybody can be distressed over something completely different from anybody else. It's just what makes her tick.
Well, we just got informed that the jury has been sent back into deliberations. They are going to continue on today. This is very interesting. Not sure which way this case is going to go. We are recapping some of the most important moments from this trial, including when Leonard Kachinsky took the stand, because you might have missed it. And we are going to replay his testimony. We're going to replay the testimony of Mandy Bartelt and try to understand both sides and see what really happened. We are also keeping a very careful eye on other trials throughout the country. We have a lot of activity here today. One trial out of Ohio, another one out of Florida we're keeping an eye on. And again, a little bit later on in the program, we are going to cover a very special moment, a very special program on the Sandy Hook massacre, because it's coming up to the 6-year anniversary. We'll be right back. Okay, let's break this down right now. I'm back here with criminal defense attorney Saman Nasseri. Saman, all this discussion about their relationship before it broke down, is this relevant? Because what we talked about, really, is if she felt that the relationship took an uncomfortable turn, isn't that all that matters? Why does it matter how they were behaving beforehand?
Because, remember, what's the reasonable, uncomfortable term? You have to remember that key word, reasonable. So he's building up this relationship prior to, and her being there for him, and her making him feel a certain way and putting him in a certain state of mind of what this relationship was or what it could have been. Was it reasonable for him to act the way he did? And then the jury has to decide, well, was it reasonable for her to respond the way that she did? And he's setting it up in such a way that she made me feel this way. It is unreasonable for her to now turn around and say, I went too far.
Interesting. Let's continue on. We'll learn a little bit more of their relationship gone bad. Wow. Okay. We're going to break this down. I do want to give our viewers an update, though, right now in the Denise Williams case. This is an update from ABC 27 reporter Steve Jawanmal, who's reporting from the jury selection right now. He's indicated that 200 jurors are expected. The judge is bringing them in a group of 21. The first group has already been brought in. The judge explained that the trial is expected to last 5 days once the jury is selected. And right now, the individual questioning of jurors has begun. This is an exciting new case that we're bringing you here on Law and Crime, and as soon as it goes live, we're going to go live. But we want to focus right now back on the Len Kachinsky case, and I want to ask Saman. Saman, my question to you is, and we talked a little about what might be the motivation, if we take everything as true from the alleged victim, Mandy Bartell, why Len Kachinsky engaged in this erratic behavior. But from her perspective, when she says to him, hey, you rock, and they seem to have such a great relationship, what changed?
And that's what we don't know. But he might have taken it too far of, hey, I want more than this professional, friendly, you being there for me relationship. And what might have changed is her state of mind of, oh, no, I might have led him on too much, or oh no, this isn't what I want, or now it's making me uncomfortable. And I know that she's the quote-unquote victim in this case, but it also might be that her state of mind is not reasonable. Her state of mind might be she might be I don't want to say a delicate person, but someone who's easily offended. And it might have just been the smallest thing that happened that triggered her, and she went off, and he might have no idea what that was.
Have you seen stalking cases like this where the defendant is found not guilty because the jury finds that this behavior, this reaction on the part of the alleged victim is unreasonable?
Yeah, I mean, usually it wouldn't even get to this point. I mean, the way that this case is being described is this is a probable restraining order case at most. It's not. Nothing has happened. Nothing sounds yet that there is a criminal element here. Usually, in stalking cases that have a criminal element, there is some sort of domestic relationship first, or possible domestic relationship. There's some sort of threat or violence or some sort of sexual act. There's other issues that play into it, not just, hey, I know your mom was at your house. Hey, I'm sending you Facebook messages.
Right.
There's like an open communication between them. Usually it's one person really trying to call the police multiple times, trying to get the person to back off, letting their friends know. We don't have that.
The details are very different in this case, but we can't ignore the fact that she did break down on the stand. This is having a very strong emotional impact on her. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about this trial. Okay, so Saman, the interesting aspect of this, right, is we're learning about the breakdown of this relationship. As soon as he found out from her that something was wrong, as soon as he realized that there was a problem, what seems to be coming forward is that he kept trying to fix the situation but make it worse. He kept pushing forward. As a judge, shouldn't he have known better to just stop?
Yes and no. I mean, don't forget, we're talking about, one, the social media side of it. And the social media side of it is some people read maybe too much into it. He might not be someone that fully understands social media. Don't forget, he is an older generation. And to her, it might not have been a big deal. And then now he's making it a big deal. Then he's pushing it. And to her now, in her head, she's like, why is this guy making this such a big deal? Why is he making this an issue? It should just be done, dropped. We could have moved on from it and had nothing to do with it. And he might be, like, internally very insecure and very uncomfortable, and just that's how he expresses it. And I don't know necessarily he might have meant anything malicious by it.
Do you think this case, though, raises larger questions about workplace behavior and relationships? I'm not talking even sexual relationships. I'm just talking about communicating with coworkers. There seems to be, maybe in 2018, more people are too comfortable and they forget that you are in a work environment. Do you see this happening more and more?
Yeah, I see both extremes. I think people are too comfortable with their employees and they try to push things too far, or might say they say things that they would say to, probably their best friends or their spouse or significant other, whatever it might be. And then at the same time, you also have people who are so nervous in 2018 to say the right or wrong thing, and they're tiptoeing around everything because they don't want to be offensive and they don't want to say the wrong thing that's going to get them sued. So where is that happy medium, right? Where is that point where you hired someone that's the right fit, or you have the right person that's in there that's not going to be easily offended, or you guys get along and you guys are on the same page for the most part? It's very difficult.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be charged with stalking, I'll tell you that much. Let's take a break. When we come back, a lot more to discuss. Okay, so this is when things take a turn and the problems start. Saman, based upon what you just heard, has he been acting unreasonably yet?
I don't think so. I don't think that, like I said, I don't think he has been acting unreasonable yet. I don't think he has an ability to properly read the situation. Maybe that to me is more what it is. I don't think it's necessarily unreasonable. I think it's someone who subjectively doesn't understand social cues. That might be more what it is, at least in my opinion, but I don't think he's necessarily acted unreasonable. Well,
the defense is first to say he's a quirky guy. He's a little odd. You have to take that into consideration. Let's play a little bit more of his testimony. So, Saman, one of the things that we can't forget as we're listening to this testimony is really he's facing a stalking charge. At one point, he was facing 2 counts of violating a restraining order, but those were dismissed. We're told by the prosecution that that was a strategic move. What do you think was going on there?
Well, the reason why those were dismissed, at least in my opinion, from a strategy standpoint,
dropped, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, the reason why those were dropped by the prosecution is to put more into the stalking element, because the restraining order, look, they had a working relationship, right? So if you say he's violating by being around her, those get very, very specific as to when and how he's allowed to be around her and when he can violate the restraining order and when he can't. But the stalking charge is making someone uncomfortable. And the prosecution wants to emphasize that he was making her uncomfortable. Like any reasonable person would have been uncomfortable in this situation. And the truth is, I mean, he just is someone who I don't think he understood social cues and just pushed very hard.
Yeah, that's one of the weird parts about this case, but it's not the only thing. One of the reasons it's drawing so much attention is because obviously he played a central role in making a murderer, and we know there's a lot of people who are watching this trial hoping that he's found guilty because they blame him for what ultimately happened to Brendan Dassey. What would you say to all those people that are rooting against him?
It's unfortunate, and the documentary doesn't necessarily show everything and anything that happened behind the scenes. It showed a lot, but you can't take someone's legal career and what they've accomplished on its merits based on a documentary. I saw the documentary too, and I remember watching that and having a little bit of shock factor there, like, oh, I can't believe he did that.
Saman, you're not the only one who thought that, and that might be a whole separate discussion. I'm glad we still have you. We do have to take a break. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about that aspect, and we are going to focus more on his testimony. We'll be right back. All right, let's try to understand this. Saman, what am I not understanding here? The way that what I just heard from this witness, the defendant, was that there was an order put in by the judge, no contact, and yet Mandy Bartelt, according to him, says, hey, Judge, how you doing? So what am I not getting here?
And that's huge for the jury to understand, is how, if she's subjectively feeling in such a way that the judge needs to put in a no contact order, and she doesn't feel like that's a big enough deal to avoid this person, why is she reaching out? Why is she the one saying, hey, Judge, how are you? Hi, how's it going? And that puts, he's still a judge. I mean, he's still a lawyer. No matter what people feel about him or how he did his job in whatever show, he's not a dumb person. So he knows the law, and he knows, wait a second, why are you contacting me? Why are you talking to me? Please don't put me in a worse situation than this already is. I mean, let's please avoid this situation. And so why is she going there?
Yeah, and he explained a little bit more about why he felt that he needed to fire her almost, because he felt he was going to eventually get in trouble. So it wasn't going to end well. Saman Nasseri, I know we have to sign you off. Thank you so much for your perspective on this case this morning.
I appreciate it. Thanks. Have a good day, guys.
You too. All right, everybody. Did you know that on Friday is going to mark 6 years since the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting? Well, it is. And when we come back, we're going to speak with a co-founder of an organization to make sure this never happens again. We'll be right back.